And we are back again with my favorite time of the year, which is NHL Free Agency. Even though we just got done with the Stanley Cup, I know we are in the midst of the NFL season. Everything's completely out of whack with the schedule right now. But yeah, so David, go ahead and introduce us, my friend.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Uncommon Man Podcast. I'm your host, David. This is Mike. Tonight, we are going to wrap up the free agency / draft of the NHL, and we're just going to kind of talk about some recent signings, and let's roll. Real quick, everybody, before we start, like, share, subscribe, follow us on YouTube and Twitter. Thumbs up.
We have definitely been talking a lot of smack the last handful of days on Twitter. I don't know why. It's just been the mode for us. Kind of out of character, but at the same time, make sure that you volley that shit right back because we love it. So
you say it's kind of our, you say it's out of character, but it's our character. Don't let it
Welcome to the team. Sweet, guys. Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to dip into the NBC Sports well because they seem to have the best roster setup that we've got going on here for the free agency picks, especially what days they happen. So which ones were the freshest and which ones were the original signings that we had. So it seemed to be the priorities for most of the teams. We'll go ahead and take a look at that now so that way we can discuss it with you. All right, so this was as of October 9th. We had all these signings. I think they said that there was, including the AHL players, which are guys that may have a chance at the NHL someday, but as of right now, they're basically just they're training prospects, if you will, the up-and-comers. The majority of these were all guys who have been in the NHL already. So this has been the year of goalies in free agency. So there's a couple big ones right off the bat. You had Braden Holtby going to the Vancouver Canucks. Anybody knows him from the Capitals. He had a pretty prolific career there. Last couple of years, he's been struggling.
Monster contract there.
Yeah, huge contract, man. They're paying him, and they just actually let one of the other goalies go who made a massive contract. Let's see if we can find that gentleman real quick. Signed a little later, didn't he? I know I just saw him. Where was he? I'll find him as we come across. I don't want to sit here and keep wasting all this time. Okay, so some of these guys aren't highlighted for a reason. They're not really any big names. Let's see here. Luke Schenn was a big one going to Tampa Bay, especially at a veteran minimum, $800,000. Well, veteran minimum $700,000, but for a guy with his experience, $800 is pretty decent. Thomas Nosek was a big one for the Knights. Let's see here. Pat Maroon was a big one. They brought him back after he just won a Stanley Cup with them. We've got Anthony Bitetto. That was I can't remember if he was with the Rangers already. Yeah, he was. No, I'm sorry. Was he with the Jets? Yeah, so he left the Jets to go to the Rangers. I apologize, guys. Jack Johnson. So this is a hilarious one. Kyle, if you're listening, you're welcome, buddy. I know we were texting about how much of a gem this was. So the Penguins actually bought this dude out of a contract, and then the New York Rangers signed him for a 1-year, $1.15 million contract, dude. That guy was a complete liability for the last two teams he's been on. He does have a Stanley Cup, but it's not because of him. It's in lieu of him kind of deal. So, yeah, the guy,
baggage guy.
He's a really close friends with Sidney Crosby. So that's the only reason he really got the contract in Pittsburgh, and it didn't last long. He was up for like a 3-year contract with him. They fought him out after the first year because how terrible he was. Guy was a complete liability. Mark Borowiecki. So this is a wild one. This guy had played with the Senators his entire career. I don't think he has any front teeth left. His smile's pretty wild. But the Predators picked him up. I was surprised that the Senators let him go, but I guess maybe they just wanted to go ahead and reload with some newer, fresher talent. I get that. So here's another goalie that was a major sign. So Cam Talbot had just left. So Cam Talbot, anybody that's familiar with what's called the Battle of Alberta, and I'll just give you a rundown of that real quick, David. So that is Edmonton versus Calgary, because both of those are in the little nation state of the Alberta for Canada. And so that's a big rivalry. Well, Cam Talbot started out with the Oilers, got a 1 year. He left them, got a 1 year contract with the Flames. So obviously, it was kind of dueling banjos last year for him. And then now he just signed this big contract with the Wild. So he was dancing around Alberta for a little while. Now he's going to be in Minnesota. Should be a pretty decent pickup for them. Their goalie wasn't really that great last year.
Okay. 3 years, $11 million, dude, that's a monster contract.
Yeah.
Even in football, terms, that's a pretty good contract as well. So must be pretty good.
Yeah, dude, the goalies made out like bandits the first day, man. Those were almost instantly off the board. The goalies were going here. Like I said, the Holtby one, as soon as he got his walking papers from the Capitals, they were already ready to sign or he was already ready to sign with somebody else. So that was pretty wild. As a matter of fact, the Capitals signed somebody too. I'm not sure if they're going to – I didn't see him on the first list here. Still me. So these were all the trades. Okay, yeah. So, he's got to come across here pretty soon. Anyways, I was at Borowiecki. So another big one, Cam Talbot. Vinny Hinostroza going to the Panthers. What was Hinostroza just at? I think he was at the Coyotes. Yes, he was. Okay. So he just left the Coyotes. The Coyotes they're a dumpster fire, man. And I'm not saying that to crap on the Coyotes fans. I actually respect them. But the team, their NHL record young GM, they just fired him midseason last year because of the Taylor Hall series, which we'll talk about that here in a few. So, yeah, Vinny Hinostroza walked in free agency. Radko Gudas to the Panthers. Dude, Florida was really active, man. I was impressed with what they did. They had a good team last year. They just couldn't put it all together. So, they might end up being a strong contender this year as well. Kyle Turris, he just came over from the Preds, I believe. That is correct, yeah. So he was just with the Preds. He was actually part of a three-way trade that somehow, I don't understand how, but Joe Sakic, the GM for the Avs, he fleeced the hell out of two different organizations, and Kyle Turris ended up being one of the trade products from Ottawa going in Nashville. So he was there for
lunch money, baby. Taking lunch money.
Dude, I don't understand, man. That guy, he's playing 3D chess while everybody else is playing Lincoln Logs. Guy's nuts.
Do y'all want to swap Elway for that guy?
Yeah, so there was actual tweets going out last night, ironically enough, from some of the major sports commentators and writers. And there was a handful of them saying if Joe Sakic texts you as a GM, calls you, whatever, make sure that you turn your phone off and ignore it. He has been taking these people to task, bro. He's already beat up on Dubas a few times, the GM for the Maple Leafs. And then he just pretty much destroyed the Blackhawks last night because he ended up getting a guy that's going to significantly increase the output of our offense this year. And not only did he get that guy, but he also basically traded straight across for them and made them eat $1 million off of his contract as well, just for a salary dump. Guy's wild,
sir.
Yeah, Sakic's wild.
Golly, Mister lunch money taker right there, dude.
Brutal, man. So, I see what they're doing. They're doing all in alphabetical order here. Okay, that was nice of them to consolidate that. So, yeah, Drees, all these guys right here for Avs the first day, all AHL players, dude. All of them they're all hopefuls, as you can tell by their contracts. Come on in, play for the Colorado Eagles. Maybe we'll call you up to the big leagues. Let's see here. Zach Ronaldo, this guy's a real scumbag. So he got a contract, but I think he's a shithead personally. Chris Tanev, that was a big one. Where did he just come from? Tanev came from the Canucks. Okay, so the Canucks basically are struggling for salary cap right now as well. So Calgary picked him up. That was a huge contract. Tobias Reeder was another one. That was kind of a goofball pickup, but it was great for them either way. Wayne Simmons. So this is actually a black guy in the NHL. He's been around, right? So he's been around for years. He ended up being a trade product last year. He spent many years with the Philadelphia Flyers and ended up trading him at the deadline to the Buffalo Bills for some capital.
Buffalo Sabres? Same thing.
Correct, yes. I'm sorry. So all these with Philly. Philly obviously was within Los Angeles too. It's so hard to keep track of these guys when they start trading them. So Nashville. So I'm sorry, he was with the Devils. So I don't know why the hell the Sabres picked him up for 8 games. They're not even going to the playoffs. They must have got some draft capital out of it. Anyways, so he's with Toronto right now. So they picked up TJ Brody. He was supposed to be one of the big name defenders, as well as Wayne Simmons. This is that Kyle Dubas guy I was telling you about, man. He just throws money at people. So.
Mm-hmm.
So here was the one that hurt me. All you guys have either followed us on Twitter or have been listening to the pod. Number one guy that I wanted this offseason was Torrey Krug. I love his game. I think the guy is an absolute lights out defenseman. He was Boston's diamond in the rough, dude. And they completely unappreciated that guy to the point of where he was just like, I'm out of here. See you later. So his initial contract Boston offered him was like $6.6 million a year, and Torrey Krug was kind of sitting on it a little bit, and then they rescinded the offer. So he was like, man, get bent, dude. So obviously the Blues wanted him. They gave him a 7-year contract of $45 million in the middle of a pandemic. So yeah. So as you can tell,
I'm assuming for hockey terms that's a pretty stellar deal.
That's 7 years. Yeah, that guy's committed to the team. So hockey has what's called a no trade clause as well, which I don't know anything about basketball, but I don't think the NFL has one anyways. They can't really do. They have no, that's false. The NFL does have a no trade clause as well too.
It just depends on who does it.
Correct. Yes, exactly. So some people, most of the time, it's like what the big name quarterbacks that get them in their contract, or like anybody that's up for some record breaking contract. So. But yeah, so most of these are like a no trade clause for the first 4 or 5 years of the contract, and then it's a modified trade clause to finish it out. So they have like a list of 10 teams that they're allowed to get traded to. So another big name signing. So from the Blackhawks, Corey Crawford. Like I said, it was goalie central the first day. He ends up going to the Devils. I don't understand that one, but they gave him a lot of money to do it. Devils aren't really much of a contender. They're still in a rebuild mode. Hopefully he's going to make them substantially better because their goaltending was dismal last year. The guy that was just in the Stanley Cup, the old veteran, Anton Hudobin, Dallas re-signed him to a 3-year, $10 million contract. Malcolm Subban, so he was the backup goalie in Chicago. They signed him. Kubalik, he was their star forward. I think he's a right wing. Left wing, I'm sorry. So Kubalik's their starting left wing. Here was the other major signing, dude. So earlier, remember I was telling you about Braden Holtby going to the Vancouver Canucks? Well, the Flames, after letting Cam Talbot go, signed Jacob Markstrom. Jacob Markstrom basically was a shutdown goalie for the Canucks last season. He just elevated the team to the next level to where they actually made it to the second round of the playoffs. The actual playoffs, just like the Avs did last year before getting beat out by the Golden Knights. So they let him walk in free agency to get replaced by Braden Holtby, and then the Flames just gave him this ridiculous contract of 6 years, $36 million. And I don't say ridiculous like he didn't earn it. He definitely earned it, but I mean, it's just a monumental contract for a dude that was – I mean, he was really kind of just he was a veteran journeyman, if you will, for a while. So I'm glad to see that he got paid somewhere. Hopefully they're going to appreciate him a little bit more. And then Kevin Shattenkirk, this guy, he's a journeyman as well, but he's fresh off a Stanley Cup win with Tampa Bay. Ducks gave him 3 years, $11.7 million. So on to day 2. So this would have been Saturday the 10th. Trevor Van Riemsdyk was a big one. Going to the Washington Capitals. They really got him at a pretty decent deal, $800,000. Zach Bogosian. Nobody could. I don't understand where the Maple Leafs actually had the cap space for these guys, but they picked up Bogosian on a pretty solid contract for 1 year, $1 million. He was a plug and play character for the Lightning last year when they won recently when they won the Stanley Cup. So that was another good pickup for the Maple Leafs. We need to do one of these episodes where we just go through and take a look at some of the contracts and figure out how the hell these people are actually paying these guys.
For sure, we can do that.
What else we got? So these are kind of just
Can we pan over to Spot Track and look and see who has salary cap and all that good stuff left?
Oh, well, there's Cap Friendly, and Cap Friendly does a really good breakdown of all that stuff.
Okay.
So we'll do that once we get to the end of this.
For sure.
So goalie day 2, most of these guys right here, these are all just, like I said, they're AHL players. There's a reason why they don't even have them listed. They got, no highlights for the names or hyperlinks. Mike Smith. So the Oilers had him last year. He did pretty decent. So they brought him back for another 1-year contract. He was the goalie here. He's the goalie. Like I said, it was a great handful of days for goalies. So Mikko Koivu has been in the NHL forever. He spent pretty much his entire career. Was his whole career with the Wild, or pretty much, his whole career with the Wild? So you look, since 2005 was when that guy was drafted.
Pretty good.
So yeah, he's been around a minute, and the Blue Jackets just picked him up. He's a real gritty guy. He's just old. So, the Avs signed back Valeri Nichushkin, which for a dude who was a first-round pick ended up being a bust, and then the Avs found him as basically a complete gem. He had a really good year last year. I mean, for his standards, he had a really good year. So the fact they brought him back, I think they overpaid him a little bit at $2.5 million per year, but it is what it is. Either way, he had good continuity with the team. I understand why they brought him back, so I'm good with that. Louis Domingue, that's a name that gets brought up a lot. He's always been an underachiever. Cody Eakin was another big one. Eakin just came from, the Jets. So the Jets basically had to offload a lot of their really good players because they couldn't afford them against a salary cap. So Eakin went to the Sabres for 2-year, $4.5 million. We've got Kevin LeBlanc. Kevin LeBlanc is a real gritty player. I think he was Florida, if I'm not mistaken, last. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He was with the Sharks. They brought him back. So they gave him a huge contract as a renewal, 4-year, $19 million. Tyson Barrie to the Edmonton Oilers. So this is a guy that Joe Sakic traded away last year for Nazem Kadri. And he didn't make it very far with the team that he was with. So now he's signing a 1-year, $3.75 million with the Oilers. Good luck to you guys. Enjoy him. I like the guy. I'm just glad we didn't bring him back. Another backup goalie here for the Islanders last year, did pretty well for him. Thomas Greiss going to the Red Wings. The Red Wings are they're doing a pretty decent job in free agency as well. This was a big one right here, baby. Colorado Avalanche signed back Andre Burakovsky to a 2-year, $9.8 million contract. That guy has been an absolute godsend for this team. Glad he got paid the money he did. Great bring back.
What is he, goalie or what is he?
So he's one of our forwards. He should be, I believe he's our left wing. He is indeed our left wing. So he's left-handed left wing. He was really good. He won. So with Braden Holtby, he was on the same team as Braden Holtby when they won the Stanley Cup. And he ended up Sakic ended up trading for him, brought him in, and he was up for free agency this year. I think he was only under 1 year with us. I think he traded for him last offseason. So it's nice that he got done with his contract and wanted to stay in Colorado. And dude, the guy was fire hot for the team all season, man. He was an absolute beast. Great acquisition. He he just rang them home, man. I can't. He would run either first line or second line with whatever line he was on, dude. He was just raining goals in. So he had a beast of a season. I don't understand why they're not showing the other one here. So this is the trade I was talking about earlier. So the Blackhawks traded for Nikita Zadorov, and we ended up getting Brandon Saad, who's kind of a journeyman. But the league joke is Brandon Saad has been traded away from the Blackhawks, back to the Blackhawks, and now traded away from the Blackhawks again. So the GM seems to have some sort of stiffy for him. But the joke was the other day going around the league that if Colorado wants to, they can just use him till the end of this contract, and then Chicago will end up trading back for him at some point in time. So
let me recoup my money from this one. Let me trade you back.
And they picked him up. I think he was owed $5 million towards the contract. So you look at so they signed this contract with Zadorov yesterday. The Avalanche did, and then signed him or traded him away like within the hour. So they got him to sign this $3.2 million contract, and then Chicago was on the line with him like, hey, do you want this guy? See ya. You're out of here. So they ended up picking up the dude.
And you can do that in hockey. You can sign here, an hour later, trade somewhere else. That's common.
Yeah, no trade clause this, pal. You're out of here. So
just imagine if that was fucking. We would go nuts if Broncos had some shit like that going on. We would fucking just burn that bitch down.
Yeah, dude.
But hockey, I mean, it's hockey, I guess.
Yeah, they'll uproot people in a New York minute, man. I don't mess around. Boston Bruins signed Craig Smith to a 3-year, $9.3 million contract. That's definitely notable. Craig Smith is an underappreciated wing for the Predators. He probably just wanted out of the Preds organization. They've been struggling for a few. Not that they're a bad organization. They just had a rough couple of years. So they can't really seem to get any stalwarts on the team. And then today, this
Tyler Hall, right?
Old Tyler Hall. Yeah, so Taylor Hall, this guy is supposed to be the big sweepstakes winner, right? So for 2 years, three years now, this guy cannot find a home, dude. He got traded to the Devils after having basically he couldn't cut it on a line with a guy that's going to end up being in the Hall of Fame, not if, but when, from the Oilers. He ended up getting traded for a whole bunch of draft capital to the New Jersey Devils a couple of years ago. The Devils, he ended up he had an MVP season for, so he won the equivalent of the MVP for the NHL, which is called the Hart Trophy, and then took him to the playoffs. So the guy really elevated his game, which kudos to him for it. And then last year he stunk. He was back to old Taylor Hall, where he's decent, but at the same time, like, he's never done anything to elevate a team to the next level other than just that one shocker year there with the Devils. As for his career with the Oilers, he was just always mediocre, man. Good winger. I didn't like what it was going to cost. So last year at the trade deadline, which would have been, end of November, I believe. Anyways, whenever the trade deadline was for this wonky season we had, he ended up getting traded for a bunch of draft capital from the Devils to the Coyotes. And keep in mind, dude, he's on the end of his contract. So they're trading the house for this guy, and he's not even guaranteed to play for him in the upcoming future. So they're basically rolling the dice that he's going to end up re-signing with them, as well as the fact that this is going to take them to the promised land and win a Stanley Cup in the immediate future. So obviously, as you can tell right here, he just signed with the Buffalo Sabres, which is hilarious because the Sabres stink. So all the chatter that's been going around in the offseason about Taylor Hall wanting to take a discount to go to a contender and blah, 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 blah. He had offers out there from contending teams, and he ended up doing exactly what you figured he was going to do, which is what he is. As much as people don't really want to accept that, he's mediocre player, dude. And they just gave him 1 year, $8 million contract, hoping that he's going to make Buffalo better, but they're already in rough shape. They've made some really good offseason acquisitions, and I want to see them do well. And they've got Jack Eichel, who is an absolute stud, as the captain of their team. I love Jack Eichel, but it's another one of these. He's playing the numbers game, dude. He took the biggest contract because the report was that the Avs actually offered him a contract too. It was just minuscule by comparison. So he took the biggest 1 year contract he could, hoping that basically the economy is going to bounce back next year so he can just keep ringing around the free agency pole and making more money, dude. It's unfortunate because actually, whatever, screw that guy. I feel bad for the Sabres because he's not going to end up staying with them next year. So, but I would like to.
I mean, so would you say the signing is 1 year, and the Sabres feel as if we can make a deep playoff run?
I don't know what the Sabres think, dude. I mean,
okay.
They were bottom of the barrel last year in standings. I mean, they didn't even get a chance to make. We had this extended bubble playoff series where, I mean, all of the Metropolitan and the Central Conference teams made it, and the Sabres didn't. There was like a handful of teams on both the Pacific as well as the Eastern Conference that didn't make it. And the Sabres are one of them. So that's how bad they were last year, dude. They stunk. And I don't know, dude. I mean, if they're really expecting the team to turn around that drastically, that fast, then, yeah, I mean, he's going to at least maybe have them make the playoffs. I think that should be step one, would be having them make the playoffs. Like that's how categorically bad they've been for how long. And I can't even recall the last time they made it. So, but yeah, so that's enough about the Taylor Hall talk. Glad that guy is out of our hair. I don't have to hear any of these Colorado fans that don't really seem to look at the big picture on what that guy is and what he's been around the NHL so far. Not our problem. The other big one is the Dallas Stars re-signing Radek Faksa. So this guy was a major reason that they made it to the Stanley Cup this year. Glad to see that this guy has an awesome backstory. I'm not going to get into it right now because it's just going to be waterboarding people. But he has an awesome backstory. And, I mean, he made it, dude. 5 years, $16.25 million. The guy's fantastic. Glad to see he got paid. Here was a funny one. So Nemesnikov was a league journeyman as well that we traded for at the deadline last year. And he did pretty decent with the team. I mean, he wasn't groundbreaking or anything like that, but he was pretty decent. So when I got the news today that the Red Wings had signed him to a 2-year, $4 million contract, I laughed. I'm not going to lie. They gave that guy a $2 million per year contract. And I mean, he couldn't even stay on a team. Dude, the Senators offloaded him. And then, or what was it? The Lightning offloaded him to the Rangers. He didn't even make the Rangers, and then he was on the Senators for a little while, and then they offloaded him too. So, I mean, I like the guy. Hopefully he makes the Red Wings better. Either way, that was funny to me. So that brings that up. So we'll take a look real quick. Cap Friendly. Appreciate you guys, by the way. You've been fantastic, both on Twitter as well as what we have for references right now for all of
Absolutely.
this. We've got, let's see if we can do this by. Okay, so here's where we're at right now. The Coyotes, even with as much as they stink, they're in the red, dude. They're over.
Wow.
So
that's not good. That's not good. If you're in the red, sir, that is shit. It's terrible. How are you over that much?
How are the Ducks in the red? They couldn't even make the gimme playoffs last season. I get the Capitals. I mean, the Capitals got some big names tied up in the team, and they're still a contender. I get the Blues as well because they ended up having to pay a whole bunch of their players after winning the Stanley Cup 2 years ago. So they're still having to offload that. But the Ducks and the Coyotes, I don't get that one at all. I can't even think anybody off the top of my head for either one of those teams. It's like that would make sense for the taking that much of a hit against the cap. Maybe for the Coyotes, Antti Ranta, their goalie's a beast. But, I mean, yeah, there's nobody on the Ducks that's like, yeah, he would definitely see you paying that guy. So, yeah, the Jets were in a tough spot. They were doing everything they could to kind of buy themselves in the playoffs this year. They're going to struggle probably next year, which especially after some of the talent that they've lost. I'm surprised they haven't moved Patrick Laine. That was a big name for them this year that they were talking about, or this offseason that they were going to end up having to move. He's still on the team as of right now. Maple Leafs makes sense. Kyle Dubas just pays people. So I'm amazed they have $406,000 in cap space. I figured they'd be over too. Oilers, same thing. They've got a whole bunch of big names on their team. I think that they underperform, but they've got them. They pay them. The Knights, they are a very good team. They've got a handful of really big names on there. I get why they're kind of under the cap space. Penguins, same boat. As long as you got Sidney Crosby on your team, you have to pay that guy. So Minnesota Wilds, yeah, they shouldn't really. I mean, they don't have any big names on their team other than maybe like 3 or 4. Lightning, absolutely. They just won a Stanley Cup. You got to pay those guys. Sharks, yeah, the Sharks made some bad decisions a couple of years ago with some trades. They're kind of on the tail end of that right now. They're offloading some of the so the Sharks made a deep playoff run a couple of years ago, and they ended up trading the house for a player that they thought was going to put them over the edge, and they ended up nosediving this year, man. They stunk, which is
was
unfortunate.
it that they couldn't pay anybody else to come in and help, or how did that turn out?
I don't know, dude. I think it's just one of those where the chemistry of the guy that came in, like first off, he didn't play well. He had a stink season. Or I'm sorry, this was 2 years ago. So he ended up going from basically the one of, if not the best defenseman in the NHL to just being average, man. So he's had a rough couple seasons. The team went from potentially being in the Stanley Cup to not even being or missing the playoffs, I think 2 years in a row now. So yeah, they've been in a rough spot. The Blackhawks, they're in rebuild mode right now. There's already been talk about that one. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped over a few here. Let me go back up. So the Canadians are in a good position, dude. For a team that's been historically bad or really hill and valley kind of deal, they've been bouncing back. I think that team's going to be a real contender this year. They were last year too. So the Calgary Flames – yeah, they've got a bunch of big names on there that they pay. They do pretty decent too. That's a pretty solid team. Hurricanes, same exact thing. I mean, everybody thought that they were going to end up being one of the Cup players this year, and they completely fell flat on their faces against the Bruins. Dallas Stars, yeah, I'm amazed they have that much cap space. They've done pretty well considering a team who was just in the Stanley Cup. Vancouver Canucks, same thing. They had to offload a whole bunch of people in this offseason. They were trying to buy themselves in the Stanley Cup. And for once, they performed admirably. I mean, they made it to where the Avs did, basically. Blackhawks, like I said earlier, they're in rebuild mode. So they're offloading people right now, just trying to gain capital. Their team's old, dude. They won 3 Stanley Cups with the majority of players that they still have on the team, including the guy that we just got in the trade. He won all 3 cups with them as well in the last 10 years. So they're just getting old, man. They can't contend anymore. They've been struggling. I mean, they're still a gritty group, but yeah, they got to start getting younger so that they're going to start trading those guys right now. Flyers are a good team. They're a contender. I see why they've got a lot of big names on their team. Islanders, same exact thing. They almost made it to the Stanley Cup this year. Avs, dude, the fact they still got $10 million in cap space just speaks volumes to how good of a GM Joe Sakic has turned out to be. The Bruins, I'm amazed they had that much cap space. I don't think that that's going to last, but the Bruins are one of those teams. They could either be really good, like pretty decent this year, or they could really stink. So I'm not sure. It's going to be hit or miss on that. Panthers, I think the Panthers are still going to struggle this year, though I wish that they would do better. They've still got a couple of guys out on the market right now. Mike Hoffman's one of them. I'm hoping we bring him in. He would be another good depth piece, but with the fact that we just got Brandon Saad, Mike Hoffman's probably not going to happen. The Kings are still paying for a team that they won a couple Stanley Cups with, and until they basically accept the fact they're in rebuild mode, they're going to be still offloading more and more cap space over the next year or two. Blue Jackets, that's pretty impressive, man. I mean, for a team that team is doing really well considering they could have made the Stanley Cup last year for a fact that the team that they ended up losing in the playoffs to, that they took to 5 overtimes against in one of the games. That was a long ass day, dude. That game started it was either 10 or 11 in the morning and didn't finish out till like 5 or 6 at night. Dude, they were there playing. They ended up having to postpone the game that was after them, which was the Bruins versus the Canes. They ended up having to push it to the next morning. So they were like, all right, well, I guess they get the night game, and that's it. So cheers. See you guys around. Yeah, man, but the Blue Jackets, that team, I'm excited to see where they're going to go. I like those young, gritty teams. Sabres, like I said, they're in rebuild mode. Good thing is they got cap space, so they still got money to play with. Predators, that could be a pitfall team. I don't know. I don't want to crap on them, but they're a real wild card right now. Devils are still in rebuild mode. Red Wings are definitely in rebuild mode. Rangers, dude, that's impressive. They are – yeah, I mean, that's a team that could have made a cup run last year, and with the fact that they just won the first overall pick this year, they've got a good shot at going deep into the playoffs this year, and they've got a whole bunch of cap space. That means their team is really young. And then the Senators, I don't understand the red here if that means that they just traded away a big name or what, but good God, they've got a lot of cap space. So it looks like they're getting ready to come out of rebuild mode. They trade off a whole bunch of their guys that they had that almost brought them the Stanley Cup. So that one of them was that guy I was telling you about, went to San Jose. So that's where we're at with hockey right now. Now that I've long-windedly annoyed all of you.
No, that's good, man. Hey, again, this is all, I mean, for me, I'm just sitting here soaking it all in. Not a topic that I know a lot about, but again, I'm learning. As you talk more, I'm starting to pick up players' names and stuff like that. So I'm starting to learn the teams a little bit more and stuff like that. But, hey, we made it through.
The biggest thing we need to get you doing, dude, is actually watching a few games and see how you feel about them. Because, that's the biggest deal. Like, we could sit here and talk about football. We could talk about basketball. We can talk about any sport. But, unless you actually, find yourself impassioned about it, then it's really an irrelevant topic. The whole thing is moot. So if you don't enjoy it, then this whole episode becomes a different ballgame. But I implore you, one of these times we're going to get together and we're actually going to watch one of these things, live stream or something. Coming up January is when they're projected to start this season up. Then you get to see, you get to kind of compare the difference between what's required to play hockey as opposed to what's required to play soccer or basketball, and why I personally don't have any respect for those sports, because I think they're a joke. I've never seen grown men who literally take dives and act like just because they scrape their knee, they act like the entire world's falling apart. I don't. Whereas the sport that I grew up playing, literally they have a count. They have a counter for each individual player for how many times they put people up into the boards. So basically the amount of bones you break, it's like UFC on ice, dude.
Bone collectors.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's
how many bones you break this game?
Right.
6. I got 8.
Obviously, you're not wanting a big contract at the end of the year. We're going to have a discussion about your no trade clause there, buddy.
Yes, sir. Well, everybody, that has been another episode of the Uncommon Man Podcast, the hockey edition. Again, like, share, subscribe, follow us on our social media platforms. Again, we will be tweeting and talking about this thing. So, again, interact with us. Of course, when it comes to hockey, it ain't me tweeting.
It might be. It will be soon. It will be soon.
Yes, sir. We'll be soon.
Last thing I forgot. So the other huge name from the Blues, Alex Petrangelo, anybody wanting a last-minute update on that? So the reports just came in. He's supposed to be signing with the Vegas Golden Knights. It wasn't really any shocker or surprise. He was down in Vegas this weekend. Most likely you're not going to travel somewhere unless you plan on getting a deal done there. Unlike football where they're like, yeah, come visit our stadium, come do this and that. No, NHL, they're like, yeah, we've got an idea what your place looks like. We know who we know how you are. Our agent will take care of that. Bam, send this paperwork over. We'll sign it. Bam, part of your team. So we'll see you when practice starts up. So yeah, congratulations, Petrangelo. Glad we're not playing against you anymore in St. Louis. So enjoy your stint with the Knights, and that should do another episode of
the Uncommon Man podcast. Wow.